I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Charlene. Welcome to Empowered, Life Lessons of Everyday Women.
Each episode, you're going to meet an amazing woman who has struggled through challenges both in her home life and work life and has become very successful. Meet Vida, Part 2, Challenges of Creating a Startup. As the COO of the Smarter Service, Vida has dealt with self-doubt and used it to grow her career. Setting up consistent processes and finding employees that have the same passion have been keys to her success. So grab a cup of coffee, get in a comfy chair, and meet Vida. Eventually, you became the CEO in an agency. So that sounds like a huge leap from some of the other things that you were doing. So can you talk about how you made that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like saying to somebody who had a successful entrepreneurial effort that happened. It's a wonderful experience. And how did you get there? Like it happened through a lot of mini micro steps. I started as an admin. I actually started as an admin making copies before printers were a thing, right? I was the graphics coordinator, and from there I went into like an event planner. And then from there I went into new business sales and I hated it, client management, into a director role and then a senior director role. So it was like a series of mini steps and confidence builders. And I'll tell you, every major step I took started with the statement, I can't do that. I don't know how to, and then insert, the multitude of things I felt like I didn't know how to do. And so, the way that I stepped into ultimately, the roles that I filled in my past agency and I feel today is just belief that I have people around me that would help me figure it out. And then I try. And, people are incredibly full of grace when they know that it's actually one of the best tools out there. If you're uncomfortable, is to tell somebody, hey, not comfortable in the seat.
But so how do you get to that next step? Because there's a lot of times that you'll go and you'll see jobs that are opened up and they list everything that the ideal candidate needs to have in order to get that position. And it's really experience that they've had for the last 15 years, which is, in my mind, pretty unrealistic. They don't identify the areas of growth. So how do you navigate getting into a position where you know maybe 50% or 60% of the role and you know it really well, but you have to grow the other 40%? How do you get into those roles and get people to help believe that you can actually grow to that?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have a sharp, succinct answer, but, it's reminding me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine that was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and trying to get back into the workforce. Her comment to me was, I've been a stay-at-home mom. Like, what do I know how to do? She was also the head of the PTA, and she was our chief fundraiser, and she ran the Boosters Club for football, which for those of you that had kids in sports, like that's not for the faint of heart. And so what I helped her do was reframe her thinking around how she was spending her time into the skill sets that she actually developed in building relationships, managing the financials, having the trust to manage those financials, the fundraising, blah, 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 all the things, right? And then you go out and you find the things you don't know how to do. You find the people who do and you put them on your team. And so when you're talking to organizations about that next step, you don't focus on the 50% you don't know how to do. You focus on the 50% you do know how to do and your path forward on the 50% you don't.
Well, and then I totally understand that once you get in the door and you get an interview, but sometimes just even getting that interview is difficult to do.
Yeah, it is. But I think if you lean in to things that you want to do, I mean, look, if you're not qualified to do something, you're not going to get the interview. But if you are largely qualified to have the conversation, that's the crack in the door to shove your foot in and to really talk about what you believe you can kind of bring to the table and how you can leverage what you do know and what your vision is for the things that you need to grow into. In business in particular, when I think of the people that I have hired over the years, I'm not a good leader, and a good company to work for isn't looking for somebody to check all the boxes. They're looking for somebody that's going to build the culture, They're looking for somebody that's going to expand the role. They're looking for somebody that's got the drive to get to whatever end they're after. And so if you demonstrate those things to people and you kind of force the right to have a seat at the table and have the conversation, then it's on you to come prepared to demonstrate why you think you deserve it.
So you've had the courage to branch out and create a startup. Can you talk about how you empowered yourself to take this new adventure?
It was so hard. I was sitting in an agency with a really cushy job. I'd been there for many, many years. We had gone through a couple of acquisitions. So I'd done a ton of change management. And I really felt like, incorrectly, by the way, but I really felt like there was nothing else for me to learn in that industry. And I was bored and I was looking for ways to give back. And I was working with Habitat for Humanity. I was working with organizations dealing with food insecurity, like going back to that helper mentality that I have. And it wasn't enough. And I started, I started talking to someone that I had known for years in the agency world, and he was telling me about this concept that he had. And I'm a builder. I like to make things go from idea to realization, and I'm good at it. And he was telling me this idea that he had and about helping older adults with technology, and it's less about inconvenience and it's more about navigating a world that's digitizing around you. And if you don't have skills to use technology, you get shut out of things and meaningful things, whether it's just inclusiveness of being able to check yourself out of the grocery store, all the way through, very dangerous things like I can't confirm my doctor's appointment. I don't know how to do that. And so when I was looking at should I do this or should I not, I asked a ton of people, should I do this or not? It's crazy to leave, a very lucrative position, where I was very comfortable financially, but kind of tilting inside and go do something that I feel like matters. And, I was in a really fortunate position where I had some runway that I could do that. And so I went for it. I saw a lot of things that I'd never done before. I'd never talked to investors before. I'd never fully managed a P&L without kind of a board of C-suiters around me, that had those competencies. I mean, I really stepped into something by myself, and it was hard, but it was totally worth it.
So as an entrepreneur myself, having also had 5 switches of management and company ownership in my career, and then having a boss that I absolutely did not respect, I am also a builder, so I planned for a year to save the money for the technology equipment I needed for my graphics and marketing business. And I stepped out and I did it with the support. Of course, you have to have the support of your loved one.
Yeah.
And you have to have the financial, wherewithal to be able to do that. But I planned and I saved and made something happen. But I think it takes a certain kind of personality also to be able to do that.
It does. Yeah. Entrepreneurism and startups are not for everybody. If it was easy to start a business, everybody would do it. And there's a lot of lows that happen kind of in the shadows of the experience. But that resilience and that ability to, not see failure as failure, but see it as a learning and a reset is so important. And it's just been a fantastic journey. And I've gotten to meet other people, Charlene, like yourself and Rebecca, that just wanted to step out and do something that they were passionate about and that they felt they could do on their own and that had less kind of restrictions on how you did it. And my old CEO used to say, and I've carried this lesson forward and carried it into the company I'm running today, I didn't want a company where Sunday night I woke up with a pit in my stomach because Monday was coming. I want a culture where people are looking forward to coming to work. As an entrepreneur, you're in control of that. You're in control of that vibe. And
it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And honestly, if we look at even this podcast that we're doing, I mean, I knew nothing about the technology. I'm a technology girl, sort of. I've been on Mac since the little Mac SE. So I've been around them, but I just do it. And I just have the confidence to just figure it out. And when new technology is introduced to me at my age, I embrace it.
Yeah.
Because if I don't embrace it in another 10 years or 15 or 20 years, I'm going to be that lost individual. So
That's true.
I think we just kind of just embrace the whole idea of just pushing forward. I mean, this is kind of an entrepreneurship, even though it's a podcast.
I mean, we're learning so much, right, in such a short period of time. I'll be honest, I never listened to a podcast until we started doing this. Podcast, what's that? How do I get to it?
I love it. I love it. And you can feel the passion of this. I mean, we've had a lot of exchanges, trying to get this set up. And I felt from the very beginning how much you guys love what you're doing. And I love what you're doing. Like the ability to drop in on people's conversations around things that may be helpful to you is a really powerful thing.
It is. So your business, you go across several different states, right? Mm-hmm. So how have you set up procedures or processes so that you're consistent across every state and organization?
Yeah. Well, we listen to our audience. And so, a big part of our service was just understanding what's the challenge and how can we help. And then we've created process around that. And we have everything from how we launch into communities, how we market in communities, how we expect our concierge to work with folks that interact with us. We have a lot of guidelines set around that. And we talk a lot about, there's a drumbeat of expectation around kind of the care and feeding of the communities that we serve. And then we've learned, just how communities operate. We're very intentional about the way that we set up. All of our setups look the same from community to community. And so it's just rhythm of business and having process in place, same behaviors for everybody, same conversations, same stand-ups every week that creates that rote kind of
consistency.
Have you had issues hiring and keeping good employees?
We've been really lucky. So my past actually comes from building teams across the country for brands who are looking to educate retail sales associates how to sell product to consumers. And so I have a very deep background in hiring remote employees. So it hasn't been challenging, I think, a blend of that experience, but also in what we're looking for. I mean, we're a very mission-minded organization. And so we typically attract mission-minded people who want to work for us. And they're all employees of the Smarter Service. Like, they are not part-timers. We do not set a contract. So we've been lucky, but we've also been deliberate in the kind of people we're working with. And I'm proud to say that we have, tenure among all of our concierge with no voluntary turnover, which has been wonderful.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And they're happy, and who they're working with are happy, and that's a great model. Do you have any advice for people that are recent college graduates, for them to be successful and move their career along as they get started?
Well, like I said, I've got a 22-year-old that's just entered the workforce. She just graduated college. She went to University of Hawaii, and she's selling timeshares. We're really proud of her because she's giving it a go. And, what I tell her and what I tell all women who are looking to navigate their career is look where you're trying to go and then be intensely curious. Look to the people around you and ask them about their behaviors, learn from their experiences, kind of lean into the messiness of a job. Even if you're 10 years in, like, you go through these trainings and like people are telling you, like, here's how you do it. Like, look for the people who know the art of where it is you are and where it is you're going, and learn from them. I think that's my biggest advice. Like, there's so much to tap into around you of people, from whence you came. And that's a big part of why I mentor is, I've had all of these experiences, and I've had all of these, difficult situations, elation moments, in my career. Those don't last. And so I've always looked around for people who have done it longer and asked them questions. And my favorite question to ask people is, what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from it? Those are the people that can be reflective on those failures, and not see them as failures, but see them as learnings that will help you, on your path as you navigate forward. And then try everything. You're just as likely to see me taping up boxes to ship to a community as you are talking to the C-suite. And so there's no limit to what you should and could and do in a team. Like, be a full part of the team and experience all the different levels, not as a favor, truly being interested in how your organization operates, how different functions in the organization operate. Be a part of all of it.
It goes back to when you were saying dig in,
Right.
it seems like that's the message that lies in all of these conversations, digging in and stepping up and just being a part of something as opposed to being just a component in a business.
Right.
That makes sense.
A clog in the wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
You touched on your biggest failures. I know when I was first starting out, it seemed like every interview was like, what is your biggest accomplishment? What is your biggest weakness or whatever? And the ability to switch over and identify a weakness as also a positive, which is what you're talking about from a failure perspective, is huge, because it really shows that you're a person who can learn and grow.
Yeah.
And be better. Right? Because everybody has drawbacks. No one's perfect, but it's what you learn from that is good.
Well, what's interesting too is I think if you really look at what your greatest strengths are, they are likely your biggest weaknesses.
Absolutely. I've said that to my kids so many times.
Right. I have a bleeding heart to the level that I will harm my own situation to help somebody else. And that's a problem with boundaries, right? And so understanding that is important as I've evolved in my career. Or I have a very A-type personality and I can be very intense, which is really useful when you're running a company because it lets you laser focus in on things. It can be really intimidating to people who accidentally get caught in your laser.
Personalities can be very intimidating.
Learning to kind of reel that back or recognizing, even today and even now, I have to remind myself, wow, calm down, just bring it back a minute and let everybody else breathe for a second. You just, so often your greatest strengths, the things that get you where you're going, are also your weaknesses, and you have to be mindful of those.
So this has been great, but we always ask this question as well. What would you say is your biggest life lesson that you'd like to share?
You are who you hang out with, and that is true your whole life. Be intentional about the people that you surround yourself with. I've always told my kids when they were in school, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And that doesn't change as you get older. And so it's so important for you to surround yourself with people that mirror where you are and where you're trying to go. And then also belief. Everybody deals with self-doubt. There is not a human on this planet, unless they just are cuckoo, that doesn't doubt themselves. And so push through it. And if you can't push through it in your own mind, then look to one of those mentors around you and believe them instead.
I think that's great advice. And I was going to ask you for additional words of wisdom, but you already gave them to us. Many words of wisdom have gone through this particular podcast. And I hope that our listeners really appreciate all of the nuggets. There's just so many to name, but it's been delightful speaking with you, and we really appreciate everything that you added to the conversation, and not only empowering women, but one of the feedbacks we've been getting, as we mentioned, is this has been very helpful to not only women, but also to anybody that's out there in the workforce. So if you're listening to this podcast and you think this is going to be helpful, don't just limit yourself because we've titled it with women in the title. It's really, truly, I think, inspirational. And I really appreciate what you have shared with us today.
It's been fabulous. I got so much out of it. I really appreciate you spending the time with us, Vida.
Thank you, ladies.
To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Empowered, Life Lessons of Everyday Women. We would really appreciate if you could leave us a rating or a review. If you have any challenges or questions you are facing, we want to hear from you, as we value your input and suggestions. And if you have a compelling story or life lesson you would like to share, please connect with us at empoweredlifelessons@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, other social media platforms, or visit us at empoweredlifelessons.com. In our next episode, meet Jenna, Jenna has over 20 years as a massage therapist. She took the leap early in her career and founded Therapeutic Massage and Wellness. With a focus on learning and innovation, she provides an exceptional client experience.